Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. We have been hit with so many freaking great games this year, from Fire Emblem Engage to Tears of the Kingdom to Final Fantasy 16, and those are just the heavy hitters. There's been more Trails series love this year than any year in the past, with Trails to Azure and Trails into Reverie already gracing our shores, not to mention some smaller but still incredibly awesome titles like Octopath Traveler 2. 2023 is shaping up to be the 1995 of 2023. Anyway, the year isn't over yet, and there are a ton of awesome looking games on their way. Instead of highlighting every single JRPG I could find, I thought instead it might be fun to highlight upcoming JRPGs that have a solid pedigree behind them. Specifically, I was looking for at least one key staff member with notable success in their past. Now, of course, a pedigree isn't a guarantee. After all, Balan Wonderworld exists, and they sent Yuji Naka to jail for that game. But more often than not, betting on a game with experience behind it leads to good results. So please join me in exploring these upcoming JRPGs with a pedigree. And while you're here, if you like JRPGs, would you consider subscribing? This is a JRPG appreciation channel, so if you want to see more JRPG content from little ol' me, stick around. And can you like the video as well? Just if you actually like it. I guess clicking the thumb tells YouTube I don't suck. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Sea of Stars looks like it's setting out to be the indie darling of the year. And based on the short demo I played several months back, I think it's gonna meet that goal. This is a true love letter to old school JRPGs, cooking up those 16-bit and 32-bit memories that aging nerds like me eat for breakfast. The turn-based battles are already a ton of fun with the timed button press mechanics. The artwork and animation in and out of battles is gorgeous, and the music gets a nice boost from one of the most famous JRPG composers of all time, Yasunori Mitsuda. That's right, the magician behind the soundtracks of Xenogears, Chrono Trigger, Xenoblade, and so many more is lending a hand to the score for Sea of Stars, which means we have even more reasons to be excited for this one when it hits every console under the sun on August 29th. Marvelous continues its trek backwards in time with the release of Rune Factory 3 Special, a remake of the classic farming action RPG. I'm relatively new to the genre myself. Harvestella was my first full-on foray into agricultural monster slaying, so I haven't touched the Rune Factory series yet. And I think this might be the one for me to check out. As a newcomer to a series, I always prefer starting as far back towards the beginning as I can, and I don't think that they're likely to get Rune Factory 1 and 2 remade anytime soon, so looks like my on-ramp is Rune Factory 3. This one is directed by Masahide Miyata, a name I wasn't immediately familiar with, though I definitely was familiar with his work. He was credited as the writer of the vast majority of the Lufia series, several classic games on the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Color that really deserve more love nowadays. Hearing about his involvement made me all the more excited to take a look when this hits Switch and PC on September 5th. Baton Kaitos was criminally overlooked back on the GameCube, and I include myself among the culprits. I didn't own it, I didn't play it, I knew almost nothing about it. If I'd known some of the names behind it, well, that might have changed my perspective on it a bit, but we'll get there in a minute. BK is a card-based JRPG, and actually, come to think of it, that's probably 100% why I skipped this one as a kid. If you said the words card-based to me in any context, I immediately fell asleep like a narcoleptic at a golf tournament. But don't get mad. I've grown quite a bit since then. Now I'm only vaguely wary when someone says card-based to me. It's not a complete turnoff anymore. So this is a straight remaster of a classic Monolith Soft game, so naturally it has some big names behind it. Most notably, Masato Kato took on writing duties. You'll know his work if you don't know his name. He was prominently involved in the stories for Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Xenogears, and Final Fantasy VII, among others. The composer is another well-known entity, Motoi Sakuraba. And while I've had, let's say, issues with Mr. Sakuraba's music in the past, Tales to Arise soundtrack was just there's not a single memorable song. Anyway, I don't want to go off on this. We said we weren't going to go off on Motoi Sakuraba anymore. That's really only in the Tales of series. Otherwise, I think he's a perfectly good composer. He's well known for the Tales of series, of course, and also the Star Ocean games, among many others. We'll see if I get sucked into Baton Kaitos this time around when it lands on Switch on September 14th. I'm a Trails fanatic, so obviously a Trails game is going to be on this list. While I'm recording this, I'm still sadly waiting on my Trails into Reverie Collector's Edition to ship. But rather than mope about it, I'm just taking advantage of the extra time granted to me to work on videos. So there's the silver lining, I guess. Anyway, The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails is a sort of action RPG spin-off of the Trails series that originally came out on the PSP in Japan. Falcom knows action RPGs, given their history with Tokyo Xanadu and the East games, so you know we're in for a good time with this one. I'd be tempted to just put this one on the list and dare anyone to call me out for not specifically mentioning a key staff member with some history behind them. But, well, you might not be surprised to learn that the director, Takayuki Kusuno, has a history with Falcom games. He directed Trails into Reverie, Tokyo Xanadu, Ys 8 and 9, to name a few. I have a feeling this one is going to be good. We'll find out for sure on September 19th when The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails launches on Switch, PS4, and PC. If you've watched this channel for a while, you're probably aware of my great affection for the game Crystar. I really resonated with that game in a way I definitely didn't expect to. I was pretty excited to hear that developer Furyu is working on what appears to be a spiritual successor with makina. The story of this action RPG seems to take place in some sort of far-off future world where humans are extinct and these androids are trying to become human. Honestly, I'm kind of avoiding as much of the storyline details as I can. One of the things I liked the most about Crystar was the twisty-turny storyline, and I expect makina to be much the same. The director is Fuyuki Hayashi, who of course directed Crystar, as well as Furyu's more recent JRPG Monarch, so this one's in good hands. And we only have to wait until October 24th for this to hit all non-Xbox consoles. I mean, unless you count the PC as an Xbox console, because it's going to PC too. I just figured I'd mention that. Star Ocean: The Second Story is pretty widely considered the best Star Ocean game in the franchise, a claim I'm looking forward to putting to the test as I'll be tackling all of the Star Ocean games pretty soon myself. From my limited experience playing the original back in the 90s, I think we're in for something pretty special with this remake. Star Ocean: The Second Story R moves the game from its low-resolution digital backgrounds to fully rendered HD 2D, though it doesn't just ape the style from Octopath Traveler and Live Alive. There seems to be a lot more energy in these scenes, more variations in angle and presentation. Honestly, the rate at which Square Enix has improved this art style is really remarkable. It's pretty much been just within this console generation, and it keeps getting better and better. One returning name I wanted to mention here is Motoi Sakuraba. So, this is the second time I've had to mention my arch nemesis as a selling point for an upcoming game. I'm just kidding, he's fine, but he's returning to rearrange his original music, and as I understand it, he's creating some new music tracks for the game as well. This one will be ready for your consumption on November 2nd for PlayStation, Switch, and PC. This one came out of left field for me, and I have to say, of all the Squaresoft games to remake, it probably wouldn't have been highest on my list. Obviously, Chrono Trigger would be number one, come on. It needs some love. But now that I've seen it in action, the Super Mario RPG remake actually looks pretty freaking incredible. It's about as close to the platonic ideal of a remake as you can get from what the trailer shows us. Also, I don't think I'm using the term platonic ideal correctly, but I'm not going to change it. It's whatever. For all intents and purposes, it seems to be pretty much a one-to-one remake with the same gameplay and much, much improved graphics. Some people saw the original as a gateway drug for JRPGs, and I have to agree. It was a genius collaboration back in the 16-bit era, and bringing it back now is a genius move too. And bringing back original composer Yoko Shimomura to work on the music for the remake is another genius move, as her compositions for Super Mario RPG are some of the most memorable in gaming history. Barely a week goes by where I don't get the battle music from that game stuck in my head. It's actually a real problem for me. Anyway, considering how recently this one was announced, we have surprisingly little time to wait. It's hitting Switch on November 17th. The Persona 5 train keeps on a-rolling, so hopefully you're not tired of the Phantom Thieves just yet. I know I'm not. Honestly, I'd love it if Atlus kept releasing games featuring the casts of all the different Persona games. Crazy about those darn kids. Persona 5 Tactica is the first strategy JRPG in the Persona franchise, and it definitely seems like it's going to do things its own way. First of all, your party is only composed of 3 characters, which is a pretty far cry from most strategy RPGs on the market, though it does keep it more in line with the way the other Persona games have handled parties. Your position Positioning becomes important as surrounding an enemy opens up the possibility of performing an all-out attack like in the original game, and recruiting personas through negotiation makes a return appearance as well. This game seems like it's being handled by many of the backbench folks at Atlus, but it's being overseen by producer Kazuhisa Wada, who is the creative director for the Persona team, so I'm confident it's in good hands. And uh-oh, this one's coming out on the same day as Super Mario RPG Remake, so get your wallets ready, I guess. Though this one is hitting every console and PC, not just the Switch. Okay, now we're going to step out of the realm of more or less sure thing releases and tiptoe through the minefield that is vague 2023 release dates. First up, aside from having the stupidest name, and in the world of JRPG names, being crowned stupidest is an honor indeed, Guns Undarkness is a very interesting looking tactical JRPG. It's inspired by both Metal Gear Solid and Persona, which is maybe a bit of a head scratcher until you think about how much stealth played into Persona's traversal system. The Persona connection continues with this game's big name. Shoji Meguro, the famed composer behind the more recent Persona entries, is the lead developer on Guns Undarkness. This looks like it's going to be full-on sci-fi strategy action, and I'm guessing the music is going to kick butt based on the pedigree. So I'll definitely be checking this one out. Here's hoping 2023 isn't just wishful thinking. As a lover of Suikoden from back in the day, I was super excited to learn about Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. Sure, it might be coming up 8 heroes short compared to its daddy game, but 100 is still nothing to shake a stick at. I remember the Kickstarter for this game, how it blew past its $500,000 goal in like 3 hours, landing somewhere in the ballpark of $4.5 million. Graphically, this takes the 2D characters on 3D backgrounds approach of many recent Square Enix games, but the 3D feels a bit less stylized. But in a good way, if that makes sense. Everything feels very crisp. The sprites even have diagonal poses and walking animations, which is something that every HD 2D game needs to start doing or I'm going to revolt. The original creator and director of Suikoden's 1 through 3 is heading this up, so you know it's going to have that original flair. This one is going to be a pretty big deal when it launches on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. I just wish we had a more firm release date than 2023. That's all for this list. I hope this was entertaining, and I hope maybe you learned about a game for the first time, one that's now burrowing into your mind and laying its eggs in your cerebrum. That's gross, but I hope that for you. It's fun to anticipate things, isn't it? Did I miss any big upcoming JRPGs with pedigrees? Let me know down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Once again, if you like JRPGs and you like YouTube, then it seems like we're a match made in heaven, so would you mind subscribing? It would mean a lot to me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.